was born in Ottawa.
Wow, that's good.
At the Ottawa Civic Hospital. My father worked for the government, and he was an architect. In Ottawa, we moved to Calgary when I was 9, and so I went to school in Calgary for some time, became an Albertan. And then my dad was transferred back to Ottawa when I was going into my last year of high school, so I finished my high school here in Ottawa. Then I went to work for a year, so I saved enough for my first year and went to University of Trinity College in Toronto. I stayed in residence, and one of the people in residence with me for 4 years was a woman named Adrienne Poy, who was a married name of Adrienne Clarkson, who eventually became Governor General of Canada. So we get together every 5 years. At university, I studied geography and for 4 years, and I was able to get taken into the Royal Canadian Air Force in my first year as what they call a University Reserve Training Program, and that gave me work one night a weekend and during the school year, and every summer I had a job and made enough money to help pay the next year at university. When I graduated, I went into teaching. I was a high school teacher in geography. The year after I finished university, I married my husband, who I'd met at university. Of course, he went back to school for 2 years, so I had to be the bread earner, made the money for those first 2 years. And then we actually, when he first started working, we did a European tour before we had children planned. We spent 2 months in Europe. Had a chance to do what they sometimes called the world tour, and which is good because the next year we had a baby and we wouldn't have been able to do it. The next few years we lived in Toronto, and I worked part-time once we had our first son and then our daughter. But we wanted to come back to Ottawa because my mother was a widow here at the time. We thought family should be close, and my sisters were all over the place. So we came to look for a house, and at that time, in fact, my son would have been probably just 3, and my daughter was 10 months old. We came looking for a house in Ottawa. And we were looking for a house, and several people said they were going to this new place of Canada. So we thought we should look at it, and bought a house in Canada. So the decision to come to Canada changed my whole life. Because what happened was, 12 days after we moved in, the president of the Community Association came calling. In those days, the community said so everybody had to be a member of the Community Association. And the Community Association ran all the recreation programs. So when they came calling 12 days, they asked me to come on the Community Association for that area. And I was home with the kids at the time, so I said, yeah. A year later, I had my 3rd child, a boy. So I had a boy, girl, boy. And he was born just at the end of July. And 2 months later, we always went on a canoe trip at Thanksgiving, so Bob and my mother looked after the children. We went off. When I got back, this was in October, I asked somebody if he was going to run for council because the municipal council was a township council then. And he said, no. And then he said, how about you? I put my name forward, and I had friends who looked after the children while I knocked on doors, and I got elected as a councillor in March Township. And John Malak, who's the building's named after here, was the reeve. And he became a very, very good friend of mine and very helpful to me all my life.
Also, later was our Canada's mayor, right?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it was March Township.
Yeah.
And I ran for reeve 1 year, and I didn't make it. I went to work for Parks Canada. And then we had 2-year terms, and then they came to me, the people said, please, please run again. So I turned down actually a promotion in Parks Canada, which would have been economically better for me, and ran and got elected as reeve. And in 1976, that year, we had a majority of women, 3 women and 2 men. At that time, the province we had 16 different municipalities here, and they wanted to have fewer. And they suggested that March Township go with Huntmar Township, which is very rural. And we said, we talked to Marcellus and others, we said, no, it should be that all the part that's urbanizing outside the Greenbelt, in Canada and March Township, Glencairn and Goulburn Township, and in Nepean, which is now Bridlewood, those 3 areas were becoming parts of the city. And we said, we should have all the parts that are going to be urban together, rather than having more rural attached to it. And the province agreed, and we worked with them to do it, and then At the last minute, they turned it down. They turned it down because of other things in the bill, not because of forming the new city, but we didn't like that. So I phoned, Betty Hill was the reeve of, we were called reeves then, not mayors, a reeve of Goulburn Township, another woman, and she wanted this to happen because she didn't like Glencairn. And I phoned Andy Hayden, who was a reeve in Nepean, and we said, we should get together and do something about it. Well, Andy said, it's June, it was this time of year, I'm going to the cottage for a week, your girls look after it. So we had a meeting. It was minority government, which means no party had control. So he said, the only thing we can do is get all three parties to agree. That was Thursday night. And by Monday morning, we had all three parties agreeing. And they had an hour's debate on it and passed it. Wednesday, it got royal assent. And I always say on Friday, Andy came back from his cottage and we had it already done. We had to have it ready to go we had the election coming in November. So we had 6 wards and one for the mayor. I ran for mayor, there were 3 of us running, and we also had a vote on the name of the city. They put 4 names on the ballot: Canada, Hazeldean, Cairnwood, which was a combination name, and then the rural people in March Township said, this is our historic name, we want to keep it, so they put March on. So we had 4 names on the ballot. The biggest thing in that election was the name of the city. So I ended up getting elected as mayor, and I knew that by 9 o'clock. But Hazeldean led in all of the polls until the very last one. And Canada won by 102 votes. And the turnout for the election was about double what you usually get in Minnesota. I had people telling me that I was helping to get the vote out, and I said, calm down. Every single person who lives there has already voted. And we had a 78% vote. That would be 1978. That's how I became the first mayor of Canada, and it's why my license plate says Canada 1. I just had the
So how did you overcome any struggles in your life as a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and a community builder?
That's a big question. Everybody has their little struggles at various times. I've lost a few elections, those are not any fun. But I was in love with Canada, there's no question about it. And I had the great privilege of helping to build a community, a new city really, from almost nothing. All the different things that come, and it's not easy. There never is enough money, there always were people who wanted different things. But we had a community here that worked together. It wasn't just the council, it was the community. And we actually, I think, it's not perfect, and a few things that were done when I wasn't on council I'm not happy with, but you can't change it, so you make it work. You asked about the family too. First of all, I have a very supportive husband. He's put up with a lot. And he helped a lot with the children, even in those. And they had some medical problems. I still remember the day that Canada was formed, the legislature. My oldest son, who was 13, had a bad asthma attack on an overnight camping trip, and he'd always had asthma. They brought him back, and he was in really bad shape. I took him to the fire station because they had oxygen. They took him by ambulance first to Queensway Carleton, they couldn't get, and then to Chio, which was already there. And they admitted him, and they were having trouble getting the asthma under control. And I was sort of wanting to know what was happening with the bill in Toronto, but I was sort of following along. So you have these times when your kids get sick and things, which are really hard to deal with.
What kind of message or suggestion would you like to share with our audience to help them adjust and make life better in Canada?
Well, especially in Canada. I think the thing that is important is that you enjoy what you have. I know people who are negative. They're always saying, that's not good, or that's not good, or that's not good. But what you have is what really matters. And if you enjoy what you have, then you can more easily adapt, because it's hard to adapt. The things that you do in the community, I know you do cleaning the Capitol, but because many of you go for walks, take a bag with you. If you see garbage, pick it up and either put it in one of the garbage cans there or take it home and put it in your own garbage. Help to keep the community looking good. I have many people who do that, and it makes a big difference. And also, get to know your neighbors. Doesn't matter what country they come from. Many different countries people are here, and some of their ways of doing things, and sort of learn from each other. So don't just stay with your own Chinese community. Reach out to others. Even if you can't speak the language, everybody has big smiles. When you're busy, and when Jane is busy too, is you try to do some things in the community, but you also have time with your family. So we used to take the children on a vacation and go out of Ottawa. And so it's important, even when you're very busy, that you have time for your children and your grandchildren, and that you go places with them or do things with them, because family is very important.
And how to achieve our goals if we have our dream here in this land?
Well, having a dream is very important. Having lots of dreams is important, because that's how you get things done. But when you get a dream, you have to also be a little bit practical. So you talk among yourself, if it's a group one or individually. You want to have a trip back home to China to visit family there. Then you have to, how do you get the money to do it? How do you get somebody to look after the children when you're gone? All of those things. Then you can achieve it. So you get the dream, you make it realistic, maybe you do a bit at a time, and then you work out how to do it, and you don't give up. Life is not always easy. You have to do several things, and one of them is you have to look after your health. And as we get older, because I'm right there with you, and I go regularly for checkups and make sure I look after my health.
Thank you very much.
Well, this is my community that gave